The atom.
According to the Georgian esoteric writer Givi Alaznis'Pireli, there is a giant hollow beneath the Caucasus. Hydrogen sulfide is accumulated in it, which is marked in black. Inside this substance, there is the super shine Ra, described by the ancient Egyptians, and between hydrogen sulfide and Ra, the discharge happening from time to time is causing powerful earthquakes.
According to contemporary knowledge, as physicists explain it, the atom is a sphere. I will conditionally make an oval in the middle to give this drawing the illusion of a 3D image. According to scientists, its size is typically about 10 to the minus 8 centimeters. So the atom is so small that the human eye has not seen it even with the most powerful microscope. Let it conditionally be a hydrogen atom. And again, according to scientists, an electron moves around an atom's shell, while somewhere in the middle there is a proton. But here a new physics begins. In fact, I'm knocking on this new physics, since the question arises where to place the proton. According to scientists, it should be in the middle. However, it turned out that this was not a complete understanding of the hydrogen atom. Here is what actually happens. A proton should be placed inside an atom depending on whether the atom is young or old. If young, the proton is in the middle. However, if its radiation ability gradually decreases and the atom becomes stable, the proton loses its central location. Here, let's call the proton a nucleus. The nucleus will lose its centrality, and it may be somewhere here. However, the nucleus does not slip away from the center. I drew it incorrectly. One side of the atom grows larger than the other. So I will temporarily remove this circle, I mean its shell, and stretch the oval. Thus, we are dealing with the atom again and again with the 3 dimensions, but it turns out that the proton is no longer placed in the center. What's gone wrong? With my opinion, I actually challenged one of the versions from the postulates of the world-famous physicist Niels Bohr. He insisted that the distance from the atom's shell to the core, called the R distance, does not change. And this concept is universally recognized today. But I, an uneducated man, can tell you that this R distance varies depending on how old the atom is. So I beg Niels Bohr's pardon, but it is not as he believed. However, Niels did not lie to us, he was simply mistaken. And he was mistaken because, since he and his modern colleagues still do not recognize geocentrism, without which the development of physics is just absurd. But now I have to stop and focus on the following. Which one is reality? Geocentrism or heliocentrism? The scientists, in particular astronomers, have been arguing about this for a long time. It is not the main thing whether the Earth is in the middle of the solar system or the Sun. This is not geocentrism. Geocentrism is a completely different phenomenon, and I will try, if not now, in a further series, to form a complex atom, where there are several protons and several electrons and so on, and then I will explain what the universe is. So, how should we understand the hidden layers, what some now call parallel spaces, trying to finally make a discovery of the existence of parallel spaces, but so far they have stopped in one place. At the same time, it is a very simple thing, but it is necessary to fully understand geocentrism. Thus, I repeat, it does not matter if the Earth or the Sun is at the center of the universe. Something else is happening here.
Mr. Pireli, you talked about the causes of strong earthquakes. I can't understand why you introduced the description of the atom.
Let's imagine that these are tweezers. I take one hydrogen atom, let's say in Canada, and put it here. Is it a sphere? Sure. Does it have one electron? Of course. Is the core in the middle of it? Definitely. Well, the one I drew has that too. Now I take the second atom with the help of the tweezers, let's say in Bangladesh. Here it is. Will it be of the same form?
I'm not a physicist, but it probably will.
Okay. Now I take such an atom in the United States. Does the same thing happen to it? Here in Ozogeti, in your hometown, I take the fourth atom. What's happening to it? Of course, it's the same. But according to the law of paradox, something must be different in any atom depending on where I brought it from and put it in the palm of my hand. I discussed this topic, and decades ago, I published the question in the Georgian press again. Where it is, what it is, where we should search for a matrix for a hydrogen atom with one electron and one proton, i.e. one nucleus, this structure to be detected in Bangladesh, Canada, USA or France, and perhaps if we take the South and North poles, the same thing happens in the Arctic. What mechanism works on Earth? Why do they repeat the same structure? Did the atoms agree? So an atom is a sphere. An electron moves around it, and inside it there is a nucleus. This is what we observe all over the world.
I did follow, but I would not have passed from that height. I had to jump. I thought, what if I fall? And no one to help me. I looked around, and what do I see? A round building. Every single stone is seen, how the building is built. The young and the old talking in groups there. I see a man wearing a soldier's trench coat, and one button on the back is removed, hanging on a thread. I thought, he probably can't feel it. And when he turned back, I saw that it was my father. He looked very nice. I wanted to call him Daddy, but I couldn't make a sound.
Was he already dead at that time?
Yes. My father had already died. He was wearing the same trench coat he used to wear when alive. I want to jump, but I cannot. So I call my father to come and help me. He turned back, looked around, took a small, strong, dried branch from a broken tree and turned it like this, 1, 2, 3, and instead of using it, he threw it at me. Fearing the branch would hit me, I stepped back. Perhaps that saved me. I didn't fall forward. That is, I didn't fall towards those people and that beautiful field.
When I was a young man, I wondered how our distant ancestors imagined the universe and started reading about it. First, I read our mythological texts, then the Greek mythology, but I wasted my time. To be sure, Greek mythology would not teach you much. I wondered what they knew, what they wrote to us, how the universe began, how it would end, where we come from, or where we are going. Since childhood, we ask ourselves questions about space. I was especially interested, for example, what is behind the stars? What is beyond them? The members of our family were tired of my questions. I kept reading old books and searching for answers to the questions about who or what the universe is. There was political unrest in our Georgia at that time. Suddenly I came across a book about the Sumerians. It's a good book, the author of which is Georgian professor Zorab Kiknadze. I'm grateful to him for this book. I took this Mesopotamian mythology and started to read. I was looking for what the Sumerians bequeathed to us, what the universe is like, how it started, whether something once ever really exploded, where we are expected to go, and so on. I was over with the Sumerian issues and turned to the Bible. To be honest, there's no information in the Bible regarding the shape of the universe or what it visually looks like. Or maybe I just missed it. In particular, I mean the following: whether the universe is a sphere or not. But the fact is, according to the texts of the prophet Moses, the earth was created during the first stage of the universe's creation. This resulted in the centralization of our planet. At the same time, from the Bible, we know that the prophet Moses was informed by the supreme God through revelations. So I read the Old Testament and read to the end of the New Testament. However, I cannot say that I understood the structure of the universe. I'm a Christian man as well as my whole family. Though we do not belong to the Christians, who cherish the New Testament only, not wishing to look beyond it, and for some reason it must be released in Stockholm. They do not want the old Georgian New Testament, treating it almost with disgust. Well, that's their problem. So my family members do not belong to different sects. This is not typical of us. We read any literature if it relates to religion. That's why I gladly accepted the Vedic books from the young people who stopped me on Rustaveli Avenue of our capital and told me, "Please receive these books as a gift from us, and please read them." They were the representatives of the Krishna society in our Georgia. I took their books home. My memory's not good, but I won't ever forget that day. I think it's good to have met these people. Vedic literature contains the greatest knowledge. Vedic books should be taught in our schools along with the Bible. What is the point I'm trying to make here? The issue is covered here. Krishna is revealed to his faithful disciple. Sometimes Vyasadeva is mentioned. Sometimes it's shortened as Vyasa. Sometimes as Arjuna. Krishna urges him to know what our universe is like and describes it as a sphere. I will conventionally draw an oval again. Here's the sun, here's the earth, and the sun moves around the earth. Natia, what did I draw? A grand hydrogen atom? Of course, my son. I drew a huge hydrogen atom. Or why did I erase the previous drawing? Who would believe this today? Here is what we are dealing with. This is the matrix for hydrogen atoms. Do you understand? Everything that happens in the universe is exactly repeated in any hydrogen atom. In fact, there are so many of them that hardly anyone would count their number. The same is repeated in any one of them. But as I told you, based on the law of paradox, there's going to be some difference between them. The topic I'm talking about is just the beginning of this great discovery I've been serving for 30 years. Please listen to me and you'll hear a great story. To put it bluntly, the answer to the question of why nature punishes mankind today has been answered. Such a wonder? I don't know what it's called. Well, I understand there are the biblical latter days, but still. At the same time, it is possible for people to act. Of course, we will not be able to solve so much misery like tornadoes and floods, etc. Those will continue. But at least we could reduce the level so that all this does not increase. There is a way out of such a difficult situation. I've been talking to our scientists for decades. I've given them my books in the past years. I've distributed my newspapers in the Georgian Academy of Sciences, in the Georgian Institute of Physics. I have brought my publications to so many places, I can't even remember all of them. However, I do not remember any reaction from them. I sold everything in order to be able to publish my books and newspapers. After all, it takes money. First, I translated 5 fat volumes of my book into Russian. Then our specialists started translating them into English. I've asked so many Georgian businessmen for financial assistance, but in vain. What else can I sell? I've nothing left.
I came to the field and calmed down a little. The panic I had at that moment of leaving the body disappeared. I was miraculously calm. I wasn't happy, but the happiest. I was looking around for what was happening, where I was, and what it was all about. I heard the chirping of birds and the sound of a brook. I met my friend who died long ago. She was excited and happy. How I've been waiting for you. I have been so lonely without you. So good of you to have come. When I saw her, I realized that I was with her and not with my children. No, I said. I really like it here. I feel fine with you. But what will my children do without me? She responded, never mind, others are being raised, and so will raise yours too. I paused to think. No, I cannot stay. And so we were arguing. When I turned around, she poked me with her hand. And I remember how I started to plunge into the gelatinous mass again. I really didn't want to get into a solid body. I felt how the mass fitted me as if it were my own clothes. When I felt myself in that mass, I burst out crying. Why had I turned back? It was so good there. Everything was so beautiful and clear, and I can't even put it into words. Those who saw it would know it. It's a little difficult to explain. I was just so happy there.
In 2007, the Georgian physicist and academic Avelo Tsirekidze visited me at home with his whole family. By the way, his son is also a specialist in quantum physics. Mr. Tsirekidze brought me 3 books, all written by him. Here's one of them, The Physics. This is entry-level physics. He wrote on it, a gift for Givi. Put it on the table and said, Givi, mind that you're doing nothing else until you can speak to physicists in our language. I said I knew that too, and that I already had a 10th grade physics textbook. I said I'd started and was studying it. He pointed to his book. This will help you too. We talked for quite a long time and then I saw them off. I also realized that it was time to get into physics. Although I devoted my youth to music and am a professional musician, there was no other way as to little by little start studying physics. I don't know why, but I was especially interested in the structure of atoms. I was subconsciously sure that the topic of electromagnetic fields should have been temporarily put aside. There were some other issues as well, and I got mainly interested in the structure of atoms and the issue of field superposition. Let's take our time, and I'll touch on the topic step by step about the connection between the underworld of the Caucasus, the shining superradiance there, and the issue of field superposition.
Mr. Pireli, you have written in your books that a strong shimmering is concealed inside the Earth. What phenomenon is it in the universe?
According to ancient cosmogonic knowledge, maybe you get around it, but I've been studying this subject for a long time. The ancient knowledge giants inform us that tree branches are stretched from the earth to the sun. Of course, it is accepted by scientists with humor. And all these branches together were called the Tree of Life. It was a surprise to me too. Even more, its branches are said to reach up to the 9th heaven, while the roots run deep into the depths of the earth. However, when I was still a child, astronauts flew into space, looked all around, took pictures, and we know that there is no giant tree on the Earth. Here's where the old-fashioned people and contemporaries scattered in different directions by our cognitions. Since the oldest people did not know and could not say the words magnetic lines, so the modern scientists could not understand what information our ancestors had given us, or what that old knowledge was about. If any physicist could fully understand it, for so much information is hidden in old knowledge and texts, no Nobel Prizes would be enough for it. The phenomenon I'm talking about now is mentioned not only in the Bible. The Sumerians also wrote about the giant tree. The information about it can also be found in Vedic literature. In later India, it was called Raja, or Raja's tree, but in earlier India, it was called the tree of Bodhi. The Sumerians wrote on clay tablets that it was the axis of the universe, and in their language it was called Dimgal. I saw how it was mentioned in English, in Russian. Everywhere there is such a translation of it, the great axis. I repeat, none of the astronauts have talked about it, and of course there is no photo proving that the universe has an axis, or that there is a giant tree standing on Earth. Well, what did we do wrong in the distant past? What are they accusing us of? Why do they give us this information that somewhere there is a giant tree with its branches in the ninth heaven and its roots deep here in the earth? There are so many synonyms for the tree of life presented in the religious literature of the ancient people. I wrote them out once and almost filled up one page. By the way, this tree is also mentioned in the Islamic holy book. The information about it was provided to Muhammad and it's written in the Quran. Since this detail was included in his book, the man appeared to us as a very powerful confessor to whom this mystery was revealed. I will tell you another story. There is information in the Quran that there is a great space somewhere, though it does not refer to the visible sky. Muhammad pointed out to some other space, but I don't remember in which surah it is. I'll make it clear later. Even more, he wrote about a great treasure, and when the time comes, this treasure is going to be revealed by itself. Of course, this phenomenon was also known here, in our Georgia. As time goes on, I'm getting more and more convinced that the main epicenter of mysticism was here. So the main cradle of our civilization is here on our land, where we are now. But this story has been hidden. The information about it has been forbidden. That's why esoteric knowledge is forbidden. It should not have been known to anyone. However, it is written everywhere that at the end of days, this mystery is to be revealed. Natia, not only will this secret be revealed theoretically, but soon Georgia and the whole world will see something that will astonish humanity. Remember this. What was I saying? How could this phenomenon be unknown in Georgia, in the epicenter of mysticism? And do you know what it is called? Svetishoveli, i.e. the column, the pillar, or the axis of the universe. A few centuries after Christ was born, a church was built here, named Svetishoveli. At first, it was a small church. Then, in the 11th century, it was rebuilt and is standing in its present form now. Until now, we all have thought that Svetishoveli is the genius temple in the city of Mtsketa, and we have limited ourselves to this as if we knew what Svetishoveli was. This is not so. This building was called Sviatishvili because when we talk about the pillar, Dimgal by Sumerians, i.e. the axis of the universe, something happens inside and reacts to us. It is an unearthly phenomenon and it is instantly spreading to people. Whenever you mention the pillar, especially when you are in that temple, you get treated with its grace. Its environment captivates you. Something really enriches you. That's why those entering this temple do not wish to leave it. It is a blissful place, and it's built at the confluence of two rivers. So to speak, this place is a small Mesopotamia. The Mtkvari River flows from one side, while from the other side the Aragvi River, and this temple is standing at this confluence. Thus, an analogy with Lower Mesopotamia was created. However, I can't explain right now at this point what kind of Lower Mesopotamia could be meant in the underworld, since it takes a long time to explain. Well, then I'm trying to follow the program in order not to overstep the boundaries of the film. I mean, what is necessary to know in the first stage of knowledge. In 1989, a place was found in Georgia where the axis of the universe descends. It has its name in the language of physicists, as I once told you, the dipole of the universe, though in recent centuries no one has appeared among the scientists to explain what we are dealing with. I started with the Georgian press. First it was published in the so-called yellow newspapers. Then bigger newspapers got interested in it. However, in my opinion, those are even more yellow. So it got to the point at which someone must shout about it to create more impact. And I decided, although I'm a musician by profession, maybe I could still write about all that. So it seems I took it upon myself, this great burden, kind of karma. In the part of the Republic of Georgia where the sky axis is projected, an artificial whale built of boulders, stones and old lime has been found. It's not a small one. This whale is big. It must be about 300 cubits in length. In the old days, 1 cubit as a unit of measurement was equal to 48 centimeters. Thus the whale is about 144 meters in length. It's lying with the entrances below it being closed, locked. But the whole complex, what I'm talking about, is built on a huge tortoise. The tortoise's legs are stretched out. However, when you're too close to it, you can distinguish neither the whale nor the tortoise, with the latter being especially big. Even more, today the forest with rather tall trees is found upon the whale and the tortoise. It is a complex once built by hand, but which today is covered with greenery, so it's impossible to understand where you're standing. It's in the western part of our Georgia, in Imereti region. I'm going to explain this to foreigners since the film will definitely be translated into several languages. There is a small village there called Nunisi. The whale is about 3 kilometers from there, but there is no road up in the mountains. We have to walk those 3 kilometers. The whale is lying over there. I tried to take a photo of the whale from a distance. I was thinking that maybe I could manage it. I can show you the picture, but it's an ordinary forest though. There's nothing special about it that can be seen there. So I asked my friends who could draw to go up to the neighboring mountain. They went there in winter. struggling with the snow and the frost. And they made a drawing of what they could see from above. I'll try to show you the illustration. It looks like this. Look. It's hardly noticeable. This resembles the feet of the tortoise, with its head over there. And a whale is drawn upon it. And if the whale is 300 cubits long, you can only imagine what size the tortoise might be. In that period, I started to spread this information in the Georgian press. I was publishing it in many magazines and newspapers. Initially, I succeeded in attracting the attention of the public, and I took several members of the scientific community to the village of Nunisi. Among them there was a speleologist, a physicist, and Sandro Tushmalishvili, a film director. Mr. Tushmalishvili filmed 3 hours worth of material there, but we still don't know what happened to this film. Someone must have censored it. The physicist, Thales Shonia, was there too. I recorded an interview with him. Mr. Shonia said to me that this is a highly interesting object, especially since his locator framework determined that there is a large and concentrated energy field. We can feel this too. Whoever comes there, even if they're not a medium, every normal person can easily realize that they're surrounded by some very strong energy fields. Mr. Shonia broke off 3 pieces of lime from a wall there. One he took from the outside, which had been exposed to the rain and the weather. The second one he took from a relatively dry place, and the third one he took from inside. I can show you the photo where Mr. Shonia is packing one of the fragments of oldest broken mortar into a special container, and I'm going to tell you why. Those 3 samples were sent to Scandinavia, but I don't know exactly to which laboratory. 1 year passed, 2 years, then 4. I was wondering what our answer would be. It depends on whether I will be able to somehow stir up the members of the Georgian Academy of Sciences. I couldn't even get them off their chairs. I said, "Gentlemen, we have found such a thing. Come on, see for yourselves." No. Well, 4 years later, I came across a friend of mine in the street. He suggested that I visit Thales Shonia. We paid him a visit, and it turned out that he had throat cancer, and unfortunately, shortly after that, he passed away. When I visited him, he was already in bed. I asked him, "Thales, did you get an answer regarding the samples that had been sent?" He nodded his head, "Yes." "And where is it now?" I pestered him with this question. "Please tell me what it says." The letter reads as follows: "Immediately tell us where the samples were found. They are more than 7,000 years old." This is already a serious sign proving that a structure older than the pyramids has been found on Earth, in Georgia. Do you see what we're dealing with? I've been talking about the bipolarity of the universe. If this is a lie and I'm under an illusion, I would rather list the following. The Earth is smaller than the universe, but it has a bipolar magnetic field too. Now let's get down to a smaller scale. Both pears and apples are bipolar. Any fruit of the berry family is bipolar. A watermelon. Here I have an orange. It has 2 poles too. What kind of matrix may it be when any fruit of the berry family is bipolar? After all, someone should at least ask a question about it. To hell with them if they don't understand the answer. Pumpkin is the best example. Look, a pumpkin not only has 2 recessed poles, but also has its crust stretched out as if it knew there were magnetic lines and is repeating their shape. This is also an intriguing fact. But do you know what hurts most? Since our ancestors did not know the words like 4-wave, electromagnetic field, dipole, etc., it turns out that they were ignorant. But in reality, we will hardly ever reach the knowledge level that they used to have back then. Modern scientists have not yet succeeded in determining how the pyramids were built. Not to mention the question of the reason why the pyramids were built. I wonder when they're going to understand what I now dare to say. That to destroy one of the great pyramids could cause one of intensely shining stars to disappear. But when will scientists understand this? There I meet my father, my uncle and my neighbor, a kind man. Today all of them are dead. They are moving. I see them as ordinary bodies. Perhaps they have astral or other bodies there. But I could see them the way my father and my uncle used to be here. However, I could not see or feel my own body. I was led to the left and brought to the cave. There was a wall, imagine a rock like a cleft. There's no conversation between us. A medium-sized straight table is standing there. A venerable bearded old man is sitting at the table, as if he was centuries old. He has a massive long beard. There are several books on the table, while in the background, on the wall of the cave behind that old man, some bookshelves of leather or another material are arranged, full of books and oldest manuscripts. I turned to my father, and they told me, but they told me meaningfully, that this was not a common conversation. I mean, I feel what they are about to tell me. We will now show you something. And very quickly, we came out from where we had entered. We went through a dark cave system, and they showed me the kind of hell someone has probably read of or seen in a dream or in a movie. You have to imagine it, but I was actually seeing it there. It was an extremely hard ordeal. For example, Dante Alighieri wrote in his Divine Comedy that there were various things, this or that kind of system, various spheres. They're showing me something. Do you know what kind of situation was there? They created such awful things. I wouldn't even wish my enemy to go there. We did not walk, but fly. Sometimes my father, my uncle, my neighbor and me stop in the mid-air. Yes, I'm among them too. It feels as if they're pushing me with some energy, making me fly. There was a terrible situation. Some metal constructions. People are locked inside disgusting shapes. Someone is moaning. The heads of others are seen there too. I saw some bodies. So their moaning made me feel the whole tragedy. I could actually see that. I'll go to the board again and try to explain what we are dealing with. Here is the same atom in 3 dimensions. Electron, and at this stage I'll put the nucleus in the middle. We know that an electron moves around a nucleus. Here we had absolute confusion among scientists. By the way, this question divided erudites, namely physicists, into 2 groups. It turned out that at one point the electron has to go inside and bump into the nucleus. According to Newton's strict laws and Maxwell's law of electrodynamics, physicists think this way, and this is how it's supposed to be. So if I let go of this pen, it will fall down, right? 2 and 2 make 4, there's no other option. Also, according to the teachings of these 2 famous physicists, at some point an electron will move and will definitely have to bump into the nucleus, and the hydrogen atom will cease to exist. I read it in a 10th grade textbook. Later I'll show you this as well. Now I have such a question. I'm holding not a pen, but a rope. Let it be a 3-meter rope. I tie up a stone to it and I start twisting this rope with the stone around my head. I.e., the electron moves around the nucleus. Now I let go of this rope. What do you think? Is the stone going to fall on my head? Well, enough. If even a child will nod their head in agreement, it turns out that there is no force of inertia, and it shows us that we are in an illusion. Inertia exists, doesn't it? This cannot be denied. Is that clear, Natia? This is what we are dealing with. It is not yet known if the electron finally bumps into the nucleus, because later I will show you the quotation on the monitor there. It turned out that nothing like that happens in an atom. And already we, ordinary people, the guests of the scientific circle, have become confused. Finally, physicists have to agree on whether it will fall or not. Even a child could wonder which version to believe. Some state that it will fall, the others say it is out of the question. It turns out that Maxwell's electrodynamics fails in some way, and also what a mistake Newton made in determining the mechanics. Being an ordinary writer myself, I am suggesting the following version to physicists, and I have been saying this for decades. Maybe there is something like force waves between them. We will also call it electromagnetic rays or a field, And it is that field that holds it. It does not let it go. Otherwise, if it moves, it should not fall. But the electron should separate from it, leave it, and get lost from this atom. It should not even remember the nucleus. At the same time, nothing like this happens inside the atom. So what should we do? I suggest something like this. Maybe my idea could be useful, stating that just as the Earth has a magnetic field, so should the atom, and there will definitely be some force waves between them too. Let's call it one pole, while that one would be the other pole. Well, how to imagine bipolarity in complex atoms? Sorry, I cannot explain at this point, because there's no time for it now. I would leave that for later. Now I will turn to an even more interesting and active issue, and see where we can get to.